Today is Monday the 6th of January and I have just finished reading my first book of the year, which is Feeding the Monster by Anna Bogutskaya. And this was a non-fiction book about why women in particular are fascinated with horror, mainly horror movies. That is the main topic that the author talks about. But I really enjoyed this, and this is my very first 5-star of the year as well, because I thought it was so well written, so well thought out. It is a proper essay and there is so much information. There's a wealth of knowledge and thinking that goes behind every single passage of the book. There is a mention of so many different movies, and at the very end of the book there's an entire watch list as well, if anyone is interested in horror. There's some chapters that were a lot more uncomfortable than others, so this is divided in several sections. Here are the sections. So you can see you've got fear, hunger, anxiety, pain, and power. And I would say the pain section is probably the one I liked the least, but also thought that it was the most interesting section just because it's probably the one that makes me feel the most uncomfortable, because it talks a lot about body horror, and that is the one type of horror I really dislike and cannot watch. But they talked about it through more of these types of movies where things like motherhood in itself, like just giving birth, is already body horror, even though it's a real event that happens to many women. So it was really interesting. I mostly listened to the audiobook of this book instead of just read it, because I love it when an author is the actual narrator of their own book. But I am on a mission this year to read 25 books in total, and to read mostly from my existing physical TBR. I plan on potentially reading more than 25 books, but just outside of the books that are on my TBR. I'm hoping that I will get my physical TBR down by half of its current number, and the amounts of books that I have not read that I own that I have now wrapped up, if you've seen that video, is 51. However, I had not wrapped this one up because I was already in the process of reading it, and I also did not wrap up the next book I'm currently reading, which is Apprentice to the Villain, which is the sequel to Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. And this, I bought the first book after seeing a bunch of TikToks by the author, who was making little skits where she was pretending to be an assistant to a villain in a typical hero versus villain type of fantasy story. I love the setting, it's very humoristic. I would say the first book felt very much like a debut novel. There was a lot of narrative things, and just maybe the prose itself, some elements just felt a little bit like it was obvious that it was a debut novel, I want to say. Not in a mean way, just I thought maybe there was space for progress, let's call it that. And I'm already really impressed with the beginning of this book. I've read 50 pages of it so far, and I actually feel like I can tell there's a difference, and I can feel the progress, and I can see that the prose has improved, that the narrative has improved. So I'm already really impressed. And I don't think I rated Assistant to the Villain badly, because I ended up enjoying myself greatly regardless of those elements. So I still had a lot of fun. It just took me out of the story a little bit at times, and I feel like already in this one I don't have that issue as much. This does pick up straight after the end of book 1, and I have a feeling it will probably also end up on another maybe cliffhanger or elements that are not solved, and we'll follow up with book 3, which I know she's either currently writing or is already out, I can't remember. But essentially it is not a fully closed story after each book. Like, you do have a continuation in the next book. And I will say this, it was a while ago that I read Assistant to the Villain, and I don't remember a lot of what happens or the characters, so it took me a hot minute to get back into the story and remember who was who and what they were doing. But so far this feels almost like a swashbuckler type of story. Like, there's a lot of action straight away, and each chapter is really short, and I really enjoy that, because it just means that I want to pick up the next one very quickly. I'm not afraid to pick up the next chapter, because I'm not thinking, oh my god, there's a lot of pages I have to get through to finish the next one. So it makes me want to read more. It is Tuesday Saturday. I did not read yesterday and I took my book with me to read it, and then I just watched TikToks in bed. I need to figure out a way to get better habits and to actually read when I'm in bed. I have 10 minutes before work, so I'm gonna try and read a little bit, just a few pages, because I'm still at page 50, chapter 12. Today's Saturday, the 11th of January, and I have just finished reading Apprentice to the Villain. I am so happy that I finally finished reading this. It took me about a week, and I feel pretty good about that because I've not had a good streak of reading consistently recently in the past year in 2024, so I feel like this is a good start to 2025. And I think in my head I'm rating this a 3.75. Like, I feel like it's not quite a 4-star for me, but I also feel like if I gave it a 3 stars rating, that's usually when I find a book a little bit more mediocre than this. So it's definitely at least a 3.5, which I can't do on Goodreads anyway, but you get the point. It was really fun, and I think a lot of the developments to the characters and to the writing style were so visible. Like, I could really feel the difference with book 1, which I did enjoy, but book 1 felt extremely like a debut novel, and book 2 felt a little bit more like, yes, this is her second book and she's improved in her writing. And I think one thing that's improved in this book as well is the tension between the main character Evie and the villain, who are obviously gonna fall in love. It's no surprise to anyone. But I think in this book it was particularly well done and I really believed it, so I love that. Now I am gonna pick up, hopefully today if not tomorrow, How to Solve Your Own Murder, which is my next read, because this is a buddy read with my friends Becky and Leanne, and I think they've already started, or one of them has already started. So this is about a woman who in the 60s gets told by a fortune teller that she's gonna get murdered, and she becomes paranoid, I guess, and then leaves behind her some information that might help solve said murder, and she does get murdered. And years later, her great niece, I guess our main character Annie, arrives at the castle where she lived and becomes part of this game where whoever figures out who the killer was can inherit her millions. It sounds fun, and I love a good whodunit, so I feel like I'm going to enjoy myself. Funnily enough, it has a very similar title to the other book that I'm going to pick up, which is Richard Osman's We Solve Murders. So I've got How to Solve Your Own Murder and We Solve Murders to read next. This is a very quick update. It is Tuesday the 14th of January and I'm currently page 150, I think? 170, oh my god. I've been reading this so quickly. It is such a fast read. Like, it's just really well written and well crafted that you just want to continue reading it at all times. And it's not even that everything is perfect, because I think there are some small issues that I have. For instance, the main character feels a little bit immature and this reads a tiny bit like a young adult novel at times because of that. However, we do have a dual timeline and we're reading the diary of her great aunt who was murdered, Frances, which takes place in 1965, 1966. And since we're doing this dual timeline thing, you can sort of tell that there's just a difference in maturity between our main character, who is 25 years old, and in present day, and her great aunt, who is 17 at the time, I think, in 1966, and is way more mature in general and just handles things in a much more adult way and seems to speak in a much more adult way. So I feel like it's quite telling that this is a really well crafted book and that the author is really skilled. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this so far. The characters are all quite intriguing. It's very small village vibes because everyone knows everyone and everyone is related to everyone, and you discover secrets about people more and more as you go along. So I'm really enjoying it. Okay, so it is Wednesday the 15th of January and I have finished reading How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kirsten Perrin. I started this I think on Saturday, which means it's taken me Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 5 days to finish this, and that's really telling because for the last year in 2024 I'd consider myself in a reading slump. I don't want to read anything new, and yet this book, read it in 5 days. This book I kept picking up by myself. My hands just kept going, oh, I'm just gonna read one more chapter, just one more chapter. It was just so much fun. I don't know what it is, the writing is so addictive, and despite the main character having some flaws, I feel like everything feels very purposeful. There's a side of an extremely slow burn potential romance that I think is going to develop in the next book, which got me very excited because it's just a bit of yearning and nothing really fast at all. But there is at the very end of the book an indication that book 2 is coming out in March, so I don't even have to wait that long because we're in January, so it's in 2 months, guys. So yeah, I feel like because of that experience, I rated this one 5 stars. We are mid-month. I'm still not going to unwrap one of these books in those shelves that I have wrapped because I still have this one that I want to read next because it's been on my list for a little while. It's quite a recent buy as well, and I know quite a few people who are reading or were reading it really recently, so I feel like it'll be a fun one to talk about with other people as well. So We Solve Murders, which funnily enough, extremely similar titles of the 2 books that I'm reading in January, How to Solve Your Own Murder and We Solve Murders. This is the latest Richard Osman, but it is not part of his series, The Thursday Murder Club. It's a new series that he started, but it's received some praise so far, so I think people are enjoying it. And my understanding is that it is a father-daughter duo that solves crime. So that sounds fun. Okay, so today is Monday the 20th of January, and I have now reached page 337. I've read so much of this so quickly, so you can sort of see my progress. Under this little thing is where I still have to read, and that's about 200 pages maybe? It's actually 443 pages, so I've got 100 pages left, which is amazing progress, and I am enjoying it so much. It is so fast-paced, so quick. It's the writing style is just really easy and flowy, and I think it's exactly what I expect from Richard Osman. It's like his style is very vibrant and you can tell it's him writing, but it does feel very different from the Thursday Murder Club books that are a little bit more cozy in nature and just simply based in England and nowhere else. This book clearly takes place in a bunch of different places. Our characters travel a lot, and there's a little bit of a international spy flair to it, if that makes sense. So I'm enjoying that aspect of things. It's still cozy in the sense of you don't worry much that anything bad's gonna happen to the people you care about as you read, but it's not as cozy as the Thursday Murder Club murder mysteries because the main characters are not all old people in a retirement village. But I have been devouring it and it is so fun, and I think I'm already predicting this is going to be another 5-star for me, so I'm really excited because I'm starting the year quite well with books I'm really enjoying. And I'm also getting closer and closer to the time I can finally unwrap one of my wrapped books, so that's also very exciting, and I might even be able to do it this month. So yes, I will probably catch up with you guys once I'm finished with the book and decide on my next pick. It is now 10 p.m, same day, 20th of January, Monday, and I have just finished reading the entirety of We Solve Murders, and I had so much fun. I'm gonna go straight ahead to Goodreads and rate it 5 stars because I'm just so happy to have another 5 stars in January already, and I hope that I'm on a streak of 5 stars and that this is just going to continue. I don't have much else to say than when I first talked about the book, because it's essentially the same bits without giving spoilers. So I really enjoyed the characters, I really enjoyed the humor, which is so typical of Richard Osman. You can really tell that it's his writing in this book, and I laughed out loud a few times, and I thought that the characters were really well crafted and you just get attached to them so much. So yeah, that was a really fun book to read, and we still have 10 days in the month of January, so I'm gonna unwrap my very first book. Okay, so I think I'm gonna unwrap this one. I had a little look through the very top shelf where I keep all of the winter ones that are just basically winter or autumn winter, and I keep the Christmas specific ones in winter down at the bottom of the shelves because I'm trying to go in order. So I think I'm gonna unwrap this one because it says Murder Mystery Ghosts Autumn Winter. I had a lot of young adults up there when I looked through the winter ones, and I'm not sure I was feeling a young adult mood right now, so I feel like I'm gonna go for this one. I have no clue what this is, which is great news. I'm very happy that I don't remember what this is. Okay, let's unwrap it together. Yes! Oh my god, yes! Simone St. James! The Book of Cold Cases. I am so excited. I've read one book by her, which is The Sundown Motel, and I loved it. I really enjoyed the writing style. I really enjoyed the speculative element. It's also with ghosts. And I just really enjoyed her writing in general. It was very smooth and fast-paced to read. So I'm super excited about this. And I'm so happy that that's exactly what I wanted to do. It was to unwrap my first book and feel excited to read it. So I'm very pleased that this has worked out exactly the way I wanted it to, which is that I unwrapped it and I got very excited to see what book it was. And for reference, this is what the little paper said on the little doggo. I'll just read the first sentence of the synopsis to give you an idea of what this is about. The first sentence says, "Some crimes come back to haunt you. A true crime blogger gets more than she bargained for while interviewing the woman acquitted of 2 cold case slayings in this chilling new novel from the New York Times bestselling author of The Sundown Motel." And exactly like The Sundown Motel, which I really enjoyed, there is also a dual timeline in this one, and I love that kind of stuff. So I'm feeling like this is going to be similar. It says, in 1977, Claire Lake, Oregon, was shaken by the Lady Killer murders. 2 men, seemingly randomly, were murdered with the same gun, with strange notes left behind. Beth Greer was the perfect suspect, a rich, eccentric 23-year-old woman, seen fleeing one of the crime scenes, but she was acquitted and she retreated to the isolation of her mansion. This sounds fun and exciting and slightly spooky. I marked it as winter/autumn because it could be either or, to be fair, but I feel like the weather at the moment is perfectly represented by this cover. Today's Thursday, 23rd of January, and I am now page 148 in the Book of Cold Cases, and I'm really enjoying myself. I read so much last night. I think half of those pages I read last evening when I was in bed, and I normally don't really read in bed. I take my book with me and then I scroll down TikTok. So that was a good surprise. That means I was really into it. There are already some ghostly appearances, ghostly things happening at the very beginning of the book, as to be expected from this author, and they were spooky enough. Like, some things happens already that I'm like, oh, I'm glad I did not read that chapter when I was in bed and everyone was asleep and the house was quiet, and I'm certainly not going to read that when I'm alone. I think it's okay because I do end up thinking the characters are going to be okay, as from my experience from her previous books I've read, but I still feel like she does the tension and the worry and just the slight noises and things that move really, really well. So I'm very happy to have picked up this book, and I think I'm going to be quite quick in finishing it. Today is Sunday the 26th of January and I have finished the Book of Cold Cases. Let me put the jacket back on. There we go. I have finished the Book of Cold Cases. I'm so happy. This was a 4-star for me, not quite as high as the previous two that I rated 5 stars. I think there were a couple of instances where I thought the writing could be improved and a couple of places where I didn't really feel comfortable with the decision that the characters made or what that led to. And there's a bit of a weird, there's an ending that I felt was good for the book but not satisfying enough for me, if that makes sense. So no spoilers at all. That's just why it's a 4-star for me and not a 5 stars. I've got 5 days left to the month, so why don't we open another book and unwrap it together as well. I'm hesitating between two. So I've got one that says sci-fi murder mystery winter, and the reason why I'm tempted by this one is because it says sci-fi and I've been watching a lot of sci-fi at the moment, but I don't know that that means it would be the vibe I'm looking for. And then I've got one that is cozy magical autumn winter. Unfortunately, I think I may have guessed what this was, and I think I remember from the shape of the book, and then I was looking, thinking, do I know what this is? And I could see a faint outline of something that makes me think I know what this is. And I don't like that. So I do want a sci-fi book. So I think I'm going to open this one. Ooh, I forgot about this one. I really didn't know it was going to be this. The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. This one, I'm just going to read you the synopsis because this is all you need to know what this is about. Eccentric genius Adam Bosch has cracked the multiverse and discovered a way to travel to parallel Earth. There's just one problem. No one can visit a world where their counterpart is still alive. Enter Kara. Of the 380 realities that have been unlocked, Kara is dead in all but 8. Born in the wastelands outside the wealthy and walled-off Wiley City, Kara has fought her entire life just to survive. So when she's offered a job traveling the multiverse and a safe place in the city to call home, she's willing to do anything to keep it that way. But then one of her doppelgangers dies under mysterious circumstances, and Kara is plunged into a new world with an old secret. What she discovers will connect her past and future in ways she never could have imagined, and reveal her own role in a plot that endangers not just her Earth, but the entire multiverse. So I'm not excited to have this book, but I didn't think it would be this book, and so I think it's going to be one of those I have to force myself a little bit to get into it, and I just hope that's not going to destroy my streak because I've been doing so well with reading, and I have wanted to read it, so we'll see how I feel. I certainly don't feel the same excitement as I did when I opened the Book of Cold Cases, but I also wrapped it up because I knew I would be enjoying myself reading it. I wasn't going to be like completely disappointed if I did open it, and I wasn't disappointed. I was in between, you know? So today is the 29th of January, Wednesday, and I have read about halfway through the Space Between Worlds. A little bit less. I think I'm at page 150 something. I've just entered a new part 3. Yeah, page 156. And I read a good chunk of it last night. So I was at maybe page 70 or something, I can't remember, last night, and I sort of was ready to give up on it. There was a part of me that was like, this is really well written, this is really cool, very interesting, and I kind of want to know more, and there was a lot of reasons for me to want to continue. But another part of me was like, this is extremely grim, and there's a lot of dark stuff, and there's a lot of societal things going on, and just commentary regarding all of the things that our main character suffers through and the people around her. And it was not the sci-fi I was expecting it to be, if that makes sense. And in my head I was like, I kind of want to pose it, perhaps not fully give up on it, but just read something lighter, because I wasn't sure I wanted to read something darker and a little bit more gritty and a little bit more painful to read. But it did not give me this impression of hyper-modern futuristic world that a lot of sci-fi gives you. and maybe that's what I was hoping to read. I kind of wanted something that felt a little bit more space related. This was obviously not gonna be about space, since it's more about someone who hops between different realities, different Earth. So I knew that going in, but I still had hopes that it would give me that sci-fi feel, and it wasn't giving me that sci-fi feel. But then what happened is I spoiled myself. I kind of felt like I need to know if this is going to continue being grim. There was a point where the main character sort of gets shoved into a dungeon thing, and this was the spot where I wasn't sure I wanted to continue, because in my head I was like, if this is going to be more torture scenes or anything of the sort, or it's going to be harrowing scenes of her being captive for a while, I don't think I'm into this. So I skipped ahead just a little bit to see what will happen a little bit later on, and then realized, oh no, there's gonna be some action picking up and some stuff happening that I actually really want to see happen, and I want to see the build up to it. So I ended up reading up until the point I had skipped ahead, which was about midway, halfway through the book, so like page 156 or so, part 3 of the book. That's where I had spoiled myself at, and sometimes giving yourself some spoilers can be beneficial, as case in point for myself. So yeah, I ended up really enjoying reading these extra 75 pages or so that I read last night, and it does stop at a point where it feels almost like the end of a first book, which I think makes sense that they then call it part 3. And we can tell that we're going to enter almost like a second story from the information we gathered in the first part that's going to trigger some stuff. I don't want to give any spoilers. Okay, so it is still Wednesday 29th of Jan, and I finished reading The Space Between Worlds. I didn't expect to finish today, but I had some quiet moments, I had a lot of time at lunch, and now right after work I've just finished reading it. So I'm so glad. I'm rating it a 5 stars, because although I wasn't expecting to love it, because initially there was a lot of things in the book that made me feel like, oh, this might be too grim for me right now, I'm not in the right mindset for it. In the end, the characters and their stories really gripped me to the point that I couldn't let it go, and I had to finish this book as quickly as I could. I needed to know what happened next at all times. I think what I loved about it is that there was a perfect balance in terms of pacing of sort of more actiony scenes and scenes where a lot of dialogues were used to convey the plot, and I really enjoyed the writing style. I thought this was a fantastic read. So yeah, that is the last book I'm gonna have finished for the month of January, because I don't think I'm gonna finish one more book in the next couple of days. I mean, who knows, I could, but I'm not gonna attempt it. So I will not be opening one more on this vlog, but I feel like this is a very busy vlog already for January, and this is my first time doing a reading vlog in a really long time, so I'm really happy with the result of that, and I feel like that was all I wanted, was to be able to get back into reading. And I feel like with 6 books in January, 6 books, that was achieved. So on that note, if you did enjoy this type of vlog and you want to see me do more of the same, please leave a like, leave a comment down below. I will always try to respond to those. Consider subscribing to my channel, ringing that bell, all that jazz, and I will see you guys in the next one.